10 secrets you missed in the Shrek movie. Shrek, the most legendary and memorable animated movie franchise ever made. It was the first big hit of DreamWorks Studios since its creation, and this is because when it came out, Shrek was among the most original and fun movies ever made, outclassing all of the other animated movies at its time for its amazing storyline full of the funniest scenes that you could ever watch. The adventures and stories that Shrek goes through in all of the movies of the franchise are just a joy to watch. It's the movie that made us all laugh as children. Shrek's characters are at another level of funny, like the one and only Donkey, who doesn't stay quiet even underwater. The pair of Shrek and Donkey is among the funniest duos in the history of movies, creating the best scenes that make you laugh until your stomach starts hurting. Pinocchio, Puss in the Boots, Gingy, and a ton of other characters that make this franchise so legendary in all of the senses of the word. Shrek is without a doubt one of the best animated franchises in history. It's absolutely outstanding. It's so legendary as a movie that it's listed as the 7th greatest animated movie of all time by the American Films Institute. The music, the humor, and the original world of Shrek are so funny and magical that it actually made us want to live in that world as kids. It's absolutely fabulous. The Shrek franchise tells us the story of Shrek, an ogre who lives in a faraway swamp deep in the forest. But when Lord Farquaad exiles a lot of famous fairy tale creatures like Pinocchio and the wolf, they end up in Shrek's swamp, and to remove them from his property, Shrek goes to visit Lord Farquaad to his castle to tell him to relocate them to another place far away from the swamp. And this is where the story of Shrek starts. After this, he meets Donkey and Fiona, and the Shrek adventures start from here. But there are many secrets that you guys definitely missed in the Shrek movie. Secrets that you definitely didn't pick up on when you watched the movie as a kid, or even now if you watched it. And these are secrets that changed the movie completely. So without further ado, let's get straight into the 10 secrets you missed in the Shrek movie. Let's go, guys. Shrek is living comfortably in his house as an ogre deep in the woods when suddenly Lord Farquaad decides to send all of the fairy tale creatures to the front of his house. Something that obviously makes him very annoyed and angry. Because of this, Shrek decides to go to the kingdom of Lord Farquaad to talk to him about relocating the creatures. On his way, he meets the one and only Donkey that we all like, who makes him company and becomes the most liked character of the entire franchise. Donkey is just the best. Shrek finally accepts to have Donkey accompany him to his journey to Lord Farquaad's castle. And then when they get there, the guarding the castle sees Shrek and starts running around the entrance until he hits himself and falls to the ground. And right here in the scene, if we zoom at the back of Shrek, we can see a hidden picture of one of the ants of the movie Ants. From the picture, we can see that this is the main character Z. Ants was the first movie of DreamWorks Studios. It was released on October the 2nd of 1998, and it was somewhat of a fair success of DreamWorks. Of course, not as big as Shrek. It told us the story of Z, an ant who felt very ignored in his ant community in the hills, but then he meets a girl who feels the same way, Bella, and then the two guys eventually go through a lot of great adventures together, as we see later into the movie. Overall, Ants was a very important part of DreamWorks Studios since it was the first movie and they learned a lot making that movie. And it was also a fair success, garnering more than $100 million in the box office. Because of this, they wanted to hide a little reference of it in the movie, right behind Shrek in this scene. When Shrek and Donkey enter Lord Farquaad's castle, they are shocked to find that it was virtually deserted. There were no citizens in the city whatsoever. As they go into the city, they only find a couple of stores all bearing and selling Lord Farquaad's name and souvenirs. Now we know that this was mainly because DreamWorks didn't want to increase the movie's budget more than it already was. Putting more characters and filling up the city with more people in the movie would have been a hard job for the computer animated studios of that time, since the engines were not as strong as they are today. So after this, Shrek and Donkey enter the fighting arena, where Lord Farquaad is given a speech. And if we take a close look at the way he comes in and how the camera focuses on Shrek after his win over the soldiers, we see that this is a clear-cut reference to the movie Gladiator. In this movie, there is a scene where the main character enters the arena in virtually the same way Shrek does in here. Also, when he wins, he lifts up his hand in the air, just like Shrek does when he defeats Farquaad's soldiers. The movie was released on May the 17th of the year 2000, and since then, it has been considered one of the best movies ever made. It was also a huge success in that year, so the directors wanted to give it a little funny secret reference. When Shrek goes to Lord Farquaad's castle for the first time with Donkey, and he defeats Farquaad's guards in the funny parody of the Gladiator, Farquaad and Shrek negotiate a deal to be at peace with each other. Farquaad will remove the creatures from his property if Shrek saves the woman that Farquaad likes, and that is Fiona, of course. curse. If he brings it to him safe and alive from the dragon's castle, where she's being held, he will remove all of the creatures from his house. And this is where the story between Shrek and Fiona starts. Shrek ends up saving Fiona from the dragon's castle after Donkey succeeds in distracting her in a funny way. They both like each other, and Donkey plays it really well to distract her. And as they are running out of the castle to save themselves from the angry dragon, the dragon spits out a fire and burns the entire bridge as they're walking on it. And the bridge breaks and they stay hanging by the side of the bridge. Well, this is another secret reference to Indiana Jones. If we look closely at this scene, we see that it's an identical parody of the legendary scene of Indiana Jones, the Temple of Doom. In this scene, Indiana Jones is running away from the guards when suddenly he cuts the bridge handle with his sword and the bridge collapses like it does in this scene of Shrek. An obvious funny parody to Indiana Jones and Shrek. After Shrek and Donkey save the Princess Fiona from the dragon's castle, they start a journey together to go to Farquaad's castle and get married to him. Fiona tells Shrek that she was expecting a prince to have her and not an ogre, of course, which of course makes Shrek a little bit angry as he has somewhat of a liking for her. And he doesn't know this, but she also likes him. On their way to Farquaad's castle, they stop in the middle of the woods to eat, but they come across none other than Robin Hood and his musketeers who try to take Fiona with them. And before Shrek goes to defend her, Fiona jumps and defeats the Robin Hood musketeers in a very funny way. But if we look closely at the way she defeats him, we can see that she levitates and defeats them in the air. This is a direct secret parody to Matrix. In Matrix, there is a funny scene where Trinity jumps and defeats the cops that were trying to capture her. She levitates up in the air in slow motion and then uses her legs to defeat the cops in such a legendary way. Just the same way we see Fiona doing here. If we compare the two scenes and we look them apart from each other, we see the reference is complete, cut, and clear. In the same scene that I showed you guys before, where Shrek and Donkey go to Lord Farquaad's castle and they find a guard who gets scared of Shrek and starts running away, we saw that behind him there was a picture of Z, the main character of the movie Ants. But this is not all we see in this scene right here. In this same scene, if we look at the right side of the frame, we see another picture of a woman, who as opposed to Z, we don't know who she is. Till this day, we have no idea who this woman is, and the most accepted theory, and the right one, this woman is the daughter of one of the movie's animators. One of the Shrek animators put his daughter's picture there as an Easter egg to pay homage to his daughter. We don't know who the animator is, we don't know his name, we don't know his information, but we know for sure that this is his daughter, as there would be no other explanation for this. And also because this wouldn't be the first time an animator of Shrek would put an Easter egg of their daughter in the movie, because we also see this in the second movie and also in the third movie. An interesting secret that you probably missed. On their way to Lord Farquaad's castle, Shrek and Fiona develop a very funny and close relationship with each other. They find out they have a lot of common things with each other, and their personalities are very much alike. They start talking about their future together in some way, and on top of this, as we later see in the movie, Fiona is also an ogre when the sun goes down, which made the connection even stronger, but they realize that there was something in the middle who was not actually going to let it happen, and that is Lord Farquaad. So they end up scrapping the idea, and they end up going to his castle to get her married to Farquaad. And according to the spell, once she gets married to Farquaad, who is a human, she will remain a human for the rest of her life. But on the contrary, if she marries an ogre, she will remain an ogre for the rest of her life. And in the end, she ends up choosing Shrek over Farquaad and transforms into an ogre for the rest of her life. Now, while this is happening, everyone at the wedding gets emotional with the ending, and here the dragon and donkey burst into the scene. And if we take a close look at this scene, the dragon breaks one of the window glasses that had Lord Farquaad's face in it standing on top of the dragon. And when she breaks it, we can see that the whole of Farquaad's body breaks up, but the dragon part of the glass with her face on it stays intact, making a reference to the dragon winning over Farquaad in the end. You may have missed this in the movie, but it's such an interesting and funny secret. At the beginning of the movie, we see a narrator telling us the story of Shrek, with a magical book opening up with a preface of Shrek's story, in which we can read, once upon a time there was a lovely princess, and so on. As the narrator reads through the different pages of the book, telling us the story of Fiona and Shrek, it introduces us to Shrek, and the story begins here. Well, if we look at the way this scene begins, we can see that it's an obvious reference to the same way the movie A Sleeping Beauty begins. The Sleeping Beauty was a movie released in 1956, and it's one of the most legendary and iconic movies of Disney Studios that made Disney Studios very famous in its era. It begins with a narrator telling us the story and the book opening up, introducing us later into the story of the Sleeping Beauty. As we can see here, it's a clear-cut and obvious reference to Sleeping Beauty. And well, my guys, that's all the dose of DJ there is for today. I really hope you guys liked this video and liked all of the secrets you missed in the Shrek movie. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one, my guys. Peace!